mother-daughter talk show that's here to elevate your family. If you haven't done so already, please take a second to like this video and to subscribe so that you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes.
Yes, and we have a great show planned for you today. In our Around the Town segment, the Elevate Talk Show takes you to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Baton Rouge is a city on the Mississippi River, and lots of wonderful things there to explore, lots of adventures, and we want to take you there and share our adventure with you. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Also, in our perspective segment, Adrianna and I will be talking about generational wealth. What does that mean, and how do we help the next generation? How do we pass down things to the next generation so that they can prosper and do even better than we've done? So we're going to be talking about generational wealth. And then in our continuing the conversation segment, I sit down with Horace and Carneshia Holloman, and we talk about this further, this concept of generational wealth further. They share with us about their exciting new business and about the joys and the challenges that they have discovered along the way when it comes to money and finances and all of that. So you absolutely want to stay tuned for that conversation. Adrianna, what else?
Yes, so in our Meal of the Week segment, I'll be showing you how to make a really easy cheesy cauliflower casserole. It's really delicious and it's also keto friendly.
Yes, this is a entree that's near and dear to my heart. It's a wonderful alternative to the high carb entrees that I normally eat, and Adrianna made it for me over the holidays. Absolutely delish. You want to stay tuned for that. We've got to take a short little break, but don't go away. We will be right back. Welcome back to the Elevate Talk Show, and this is our perspective segment. This is the segment where Adrianna and I talk about a particular question, and today's question is
generational wealth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about ways people can build wealth that they can pass down to their children and grandchildren.
Yeah, and so the question is, how do we create generational wealth in general? And we and it's a particularly important subject to us, to me as an African American, because in general, African Americans have had more challenges in being able, with the idea, with the but with the actual fact of being able to pass down generational wealth, because we simply haven't had as much to pass down. And so that's the question of the day. How can families create generational wealth? What are your thoughts on that, Adrianna? We've talked a lot about that in our, amongst each other and with our family.
Well, one of the things that's really helpful in creating generational wealth is not getting into debt.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people get into a lot of student loan debt.
Yeah, that's something you can talk about personally.
Yeah, I mean, like I mean, a lot of my friends have taken out lots of loans, and I mean, I've had to sort of go down a different path.
Yeah.
I've got a full scholarship, and I've also stayed home and gone to a school that's located in my city so that I don't have to pay for room and board.
Right. And so you've been able to save literally thousands of dollars, and with and because you had the scholarship, you basically went to school. You're a senior at Clayton State University, and you basically went to school for free. I mean, there was a few semesters when you got money back.
Yeah.
Not that much, but it was still money back. And so you will have completed a bachelor's degree, Lord willing, with no student loans.
Yeah.
And now we don't know what will happen if you continue on, but at the bachelor degree level, you will have no student loans. So you won't have that debt. Another, and continuing on that subject of debt, not passing on the debt to your children is a thing too. For instance, us being able to pay off a home and pass that home to you and your brother and sisters is another way to create generational wealth. If the house is worth $300,000 and it's split 4 ways, that's $75,000 a piece. That's a nice chunk of change on any day, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely.
So not creating debt. Also, for so many people, we like to be rich. And we like to pretend we're wealthy, but we really are not wealthy at all. I mean, it's nice to have all the fancy furniture. It's nice to have the fast cars. But if if you're in debt up to your ears, what do you really have? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
you don't and I think it's an American thing to rack up debt, to rack up the credit card debt. You know what I mean? And so I think it's really, really important to it's not just about making money, it's about saving money, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, another thing that can help create generational wealth is and we talked about a lot about this, is about being able to hand things down. For instance, your dad, my husband Andrew, has had several things handed down to him from his mother, from his father, and whenever you hand stuff down to someone, that's one less thing they have to buy.
Yeah.
And sometimes young people don't always appreciate things that are being handed down to them. But the thing about that is, everything that's handed down to you is something you don't have to buy. I don't know. What do you think about that? Can you speak into that?
Well, I know that there are a lot of people of all ages who don't really like old stuff, but there is actually a resurgence among young people, like when it comes to valuing like vintage stuff. A lot of young people are going to thrift stores, and they're also like a lot of them are going to thrift stores and then buying clothes and altering them.
Yes,
Or
yes.
a lot of it's also becoming more common for younger people to wear their parents or grandparents' vintage clothes as those trends come back into style.
And furniture. Whether the furniture was passed down to you, or whether you save money by going to a Goodwill or a Salvation Army and getting a piece of furniture for cheap and just restyling it. You know what I mean? All of that kind of stuff saves money, because it's not just about earning money, it's about saving money. Although earning money, which is another way to create generational wealth, is a great thing too. Having that side gig, having multiple streams of income. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I think having side gigs is really important. And the thing about it is, like, if you have a side gig, I mean, maybe that family side gig business can end up growing into something much bigger, and that your kids can take that over when they're older.
Exactly. Her father and I, as you know, have Revamped Furnishings, which is our side gig, and we refinish furniture. It started out as just a hobby that we both enjoy. We both enjoy antiques, and we refinished furniture for ourselves and then for a few friends here and there. But we ended up being able to monetize it, and it's been good money. And so that's another way to create generational wealth. And we're actually going to continue this conversation with the Hollomans in our next segment. And so you absolutely want to stay tuned for that. We got to take a break. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Elevate Talk Show, and this week we'll be continuing our conversation with Horace and Carneshia Holloman.
Yes, the Hollomans are the owners and founders of Holloman Productions. They specialize in video production and promos, commercials, and event recaps, as well as doing business cards and thank you cards. They are very passionate about helping brands find their creative voice. I sat down with them last week and had a very insightful conversation. So please turn your attention to my interview with Horace and Carneshia Holloman. Well, thank you so much, Horace and Carneshia Holloman, for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk about our subject today, which is generational wealth. I've followed you all a little bit, and I see you guys are doing so many good things, and I thought this is the perfect couple to talk to about this. So let's get into it. Let's talk a little bit about this term, generational wealth. The term refers to assets passed down from one generation of a family to another generation. Now, we all know as African Americans, that's been an issue for us. What do you think is the main reason why that's been an issue for African Americans?
To be honest with you, I believe that the problem with generational wealth is because African American is too busy trying to pay down their debt instead of
Mm.
saving and investing their money.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow.
so when
Mm.
you're an entrepreneur, the little bit of money you're getting, you using it to spend bills or
Yeah.
impress your fans.
Yes.
But in reality, you're not taking time off to pay off your debt,
Yes.
invest that money to put
Yes.
it somewhere else to make your money work for you.
Wow. Wow. Horace, what's your take on it?
Well, I think in a lot of cases it has to do with timing.
Yeah.
I think when we look at generational wealth as a whole, and as
Mhm.
the term generational wealth, we
Yes.
haven't had a lot of time to
Yes.
access certain things. So when we
Exactly.
look at generation to generation, I
Right.
look at my grandfather. He was at a certain cap. There was
Right.
only going to be, as a black man in America,
Yes.
growing up in the 40s and 50s,
Exactly.
Hmm.
a certain amount of vote that he could acquire. And so
Right.
what little he had, he passed it down to my father, and my father came and ran with it. And
Right.
so now it's our turn to
Yes.
uh,
Yes.
create
Yeah.
and pass it down to our kids. And
Exactly.
so I think when it comes to generational wealth, we have to understand as African Americans that we're doing the best we
Yeah.
can with what we've been given in the time
Exactly.
frame in which we've been given.
That's
So
right.
I think
Right.
I think that's been
I
the
think that's a
biggest
huge
challenge.
issue. Yeah. And like you said, we started off at, compared to our white counterparts, we start off at a very different baseline than they did.
Hmm.
I think you both, really have spoken into the issue of why we sort of, we lag behind because, like you said, Horace, you know, our parents and grandparents simply didn't have that much. They capped them, and they simply didn't have that much to pass down. And
Right,
things are changing, like with our generation, your generation, but we still struggle in that area. So
right, right.
the next question would be, how do African Americans, but people in general, build generational wealth, particularly through entrepreneurship, because that's what you guys are doing.
For me, I think it starts with the exposure.
Yes.
Um, I think as far as coming up from a millennial and speaking on the generation that I was raised by,
Yeah.
um, entrepreneurship wasn't really a thing. It was mostly, you go to school, you work hard, you get
Yeah.
at a job,
Yeah.
and you work at that job and you move up the corporate ladder, and then eventually you retire, and
Right.
that's the
Yeah.
American dream. And
Right.
as for a lot of us, we know that that doesn't necessarily exist anymore.
That's
Um,
exactly right.
and so I think we start with exposure, exposing our children to being an entrepreneur. And
Yes.
luckily, that's what we've been able to do with our daughter. Our
That's
daughter
good.
owns a candle making business, and
Oh.
she also works for Holland Productions as a brand ambassador. So she has
Yes.
jobs, and
Good.
she receives income from both of those jobs. And
That's good.
so that income is tracked on a card, and she can view her income online, and it's broken down into
Yes.
different parts about her savings, of course her
Yes.
tithes, because we believe
Yes.
heavily
Oh,
in
absolutely.
giving back to the church. And so
Amen.
all that's broken down into tithes
Amen.
and
Mhm.
everything from there. And so she understands
Yes.
what it's like, not just being working from a 9 to 5 from a sense of
Yes.
working for Holland Productions, but
Yes.
also being an entrepreneur. So she's exposed to, well,
Yes.
I know from Holland Productions, this is my
Yes.
salary, this is
Right.
what I get, how much income I get. But if I work hard on my candles and I make more
Yes.
candles this month,
Yes.
I can have more money, more disposable income. So she's
Sure.
already starting to learn certain aspects about being an
Yes.
entrepreneur and the benefits of it. And so
Yes.
I think that's where it starts. It
I love
starts
it.
with,
I love that, what you're doing with your daughter, and that which is the next generation. But one of the things that I was fleshing this out with Andrew and Adrianna, my daughter, talking about this before I got on the call with you guys. One of the great things that I think helps create generational wealth is not, and somebody may have mentioned this, one of you may have said something at the very beginning, is not having all this debt to pass on. You know what I mean? If you don't have the debt to pass on, that is another way, don't you think, to create
Hmm.
generational wealth. For instance, if my house is paid off, we have 4 children. And let's just pull $300,000 out of the hat. Let's just say the house is worth that. And we're well on our way to paying it off, and we pass down a house that's $300,000 divided by 4, That's $75,000 per child. That's a nice chunk of change to walk away with. You know what I mean? So you have no debt. We're passing on a house to them that will be debt free, except for, if they wanted to keep it, they'd have to pay the taxes on it every year. But you know what I mean? And so I think one of the ways we as African Americans and people in general, but I'm focusing on us because I think it's a bigger problem for us, is to not pass on the debt. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. That's why I mentioned it in the beginning, because
Yes.
when you have less debt, it makes
Yes.
life easier.
Oh God,
and
yes.
A lot of people feel like since they have good credit, they can just buy all this stuff.
Yes.
The purpose of having good credit is to pay
Yes.
little by little. Buy one thing, pay it off. Buy another thing, pay it off.
Yes.
It's not a whole lot.
You're right. We get it all wrong. I mean, we just go out and go crazy. But don't you think part of that, and I think Horace was kind of alluding to that, part of that is, and when you know better, you do better, like our sister Maya Angelou said. And sometimes we just didn't know better. But I think when it's almost like being a kid in a candy store. You get out there, you get this credit, you get the good jobs, you have, you got the college education, you get the good job, and now you just go crazy. And end up with a bunch of debt, which is very counterproductive. And I think that we, like he said, we really have to learn how to manage this thing. Otherwise, it can just be like a runaway train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just giving you an example.
Yes.
I started off early. I never knew anything about investing or anything like that. I wasn't taught any of that.
Right.
I bought a house.
Yes.
In a market when it was really, really not tough, but everybody was saying it was crazy to buy a house at that time.
Sure.
So at that time, I bought a house for $80,000.
Okay, great.
Now this year is seller's market.
Yes.
And things are like going super, super crazy.
Yes.
So we were able to sell that house for triple the amount.
Wow.
And it helped us because it helped pay all of our debt off.
Sure.
And the thing is, now we know, like, we're gonna try to, do that again, so that way we have a house for our daughter, so she can flip and have more money.
Well, you guys have certainly gained some wisdom, and have had some wisdom to share. But that's what this show is about. It's about helping. Each of us helping others to elevate their lives in some way, shape, or form. In this case, it's about financial savvy and entrepreneurship and generational wealth. And I just thank you all for taking time out your schedule to talk a little bit about this. This is good. We wish you all the best in your business. And who knows, I may be reaching out to you for some help with videography. So don't be surprised if you get a call from me.
Help you anything you need.
Well, thank you so much and have a blessed rest of your holiday. Thank you for taking time out your schedule to talk with us.
No problem.
No, thank you.
We're going to take a short break, but we'll be back soon.
Welcome back to the Elevate Talk Show. In our Around the Town segment this week, we will be taking you to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Our family visited there some years ago as we were making our way through to Houston, Texas. We weren't there long, but long enough to see some of the wonderful sights and sounds of the city. Do you remember that trip to Baton Rouge?
Yeah, I remember Baton Rouge. It was very hot and very humid. I thought that Georgia weather was bad, but this was quite something.
Yeah, and definitely the humidity was a big deal. Someone had told me about that before we went, and I didn't believe them. But still a lovely, lovely city. Nevertheless, lots of wonderful things to do, lots of history there. And so please direct your attention to our video on Baton Rouge, Louisiana. This week's Around the Town takes us to Baton Rouge, a city on the Mississippi River and the capital of Louisiana. Our first stop in Louisiana took us to the Slidell I-10 rest area with its Victorian-style visitor center, where we took in the beautiful views of the Pearl River. After a brief stop, we then made our way into downtown Baton Rouge to the Louisiana Memorial Plaza, where we saw a variety of statues, monuments, and aircrafts on display to commemorate various wars. We also got a chance to see the Louisiana State Library and other landmark buildings that were nearby. Because it sits on the Mississippi River, Baton Rouge is a city full of many bridges and beaches, and it is also home to the Hollywood Casino Baton Rouge, a riverboat casino. The USS Kidd, a retired World War II destroyer that is now a museum, is also located in Baton Rouge. We made our way over to Tiger Stadium, an outdoor stadium located on the campus of Louisiana State University, better known as LSU. From Spanish Town Road in the downtown area to the low-lying waters of its bayou, we enjoyed all things Baton Rouge, and we look forward to visiting there again soon. For more information about Baton Rouge, Louisiana, visit www.brla.gov. Well, we hope you enjoyed our visit to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We have to take a little break, but we'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Elevate Talk Show, and in this week's Meal of the Week segment, I'm going to be showing you how to make a cheesy cauliflower casserole.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this thing is everything in a bag of chips, except for it's not a bag of chips and it doesn't have all the carbs. And that's what makes it great. It's a keto recipe, right?
Yeah, it is.
Which basically means what?
It means low carbs, so if you're trying to cut out the carbs, this is the recipe for you.
Yeah, and it was terrific because she made this for me as an alternative to mac and cheese for the holidays, which I was really dreading the holiday meal. I wasn't dreading it that badly because I knew I was going to eat some good things, but mac and cheese is one of my favorite things to eat, and she came up with this recipe, and I'm telling you, it was the best. I felt like I was eating mac and cheese, you know what I mean? The not just the flavor, but the texture was that of mac and cheese, and so it was a really, really great alternative. So turn your attention to Adrianna's 3-cheese cauliflower casserole.
And welcome to our Meal of the Week segment. This week, I'm going to be showing you how to make an easy, cheesy cauliflower casserole. So let's get started. I'm going to start off by cutting up our cauliflower. So I'm going to cut the stem off and just remove any, excess leaves that might be at the bottom. And then I'm going to cut it into about 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch pieces. You don't want to cut it up too small because otherwise it'll sort of turn into mush when you cook it. So I'm just going to cut this up. So now that I've finished cutting up the cauliflower, I'm just going to add some seasonings. So I'm going to put in 2 teaspoons of salt, a teaspoon of pepper, and I'm also going to put in a teaspoon of garlic powder. Okay, so I'm just going to mix those up in there together to evenly disperse all the seasonings. And then I'm going to put it on a baking sheet and bake the cauliflower at 400 degrees for about 25 minutes. transferred the cauliflower to a baking sheet that I coated with a couple of tablespoons of melted butter. So I'm just going to stick this inside of a 400-degree oven for 25 minutes, and then I'll be back to show you the rest of the recipe. So I just took the cauliflower out of the oven, and it's softened quite nicely. So now we can move on to the rest of the recipe. I'm going to start off by adding half a cup of butter to a pot right here, and I'm just going to let that melt. And I'm also going to add in a cup of milk. So I'm just going to let those two things melt together for a minute or two, and then I'll be back to add the rest of the ingredients. So now that the butter is melted, I'm going to add in 2 cups of finely shredded cheddar cheese. Just going to add that in there. And I'm going to add in 1 cup of mozzarella cheese. So I'm just going to stir these together until the cheese is melted. So now that I have made the cheese sauce, I am going to just add the cauliflower into the pot. So I'm just going to stick that in there and then mix it all together. Now that I've mixed the cauliflower and the cheese sauce together, I'm going to transfer this to a glass baking dish, top this with a little cheese, and then I'm going to stick this in the oven to bake for about 45 minutes, and then I'll be back to show you the final results. Alright, so I just finished the cauliflower casserole, and it's very delicious. I'm going to give you a close-up shot so that you can see what it looks like.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that delicious 3-cheese cauliflower casserole video. And we've got to take one more break, but we will be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Elevate Talk Show. Our time together is almost up. But before we go, I want to tell you about the Elevate Talk Show's new business directory. And so for all of you business owners, small business owners and the like who have a business that they would like to list on the Elevate Talk Show business directory, go to our YouTube channel, go to the Elevate Talk Show YouTube channel and subscribe. We want you to subscribe. And then in the comments section of the show, just list the name of your business and your contact information, your email address, the website address, and a contact phone number. And we will add your listing to our directory for free. So you can't be free, right? So do that today. Subscribe and then leave your information in the comment section on our YouTube page. I also want to remind you that the Elevate Talk Show puts out a new show Sunday evenings at 7 p.m. on our YouTube page. You can also catch the Elevate Show on Comcast Channel 25 at 7 p.m. if you live in DeKalb County, or you can just go to www.decab25.com and stream us live on Sundays at 7 p.m. there. So lots of ways to watch the Elevate Talk Show. What else, Age?
Well, thank you for watching the Elevate Talk Show this week. And if you haven't done so already, please like this video and subscribe and share it with your friends and family so that they can see all of our great episodes too.
Yes, and thank you again for being with us this week. Have a great week. We will see you next time on the Elevate Talk Show. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye.
Bye now.